So, James, my last day is today, and there's one final question. We have been talking about the last few days, and I want to make it sure that I got it right. So, the fear is a thought, and you always say no to fear, but many people say fear is smart.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, people think fear is smart. They think they're protecting themselves, but it's not smart at all. In fact, when you have a fear thought, you should feel guilty. Why? And you do feel guilty. Actually, if you look at the fear thought, there will be some guilt associated with it. And what is that guilt about? Huh? It's Ishwara telling you that what? You're not worshiping Ishwara. You're not taking Ishwara into account. Huh? You know, you understand?
Yeah, I notice it myself when I read fear stories from the news and I share it with friends. I always feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, of course you do. Because the reason that fear is not smart is because it's that idea is total. Fear is totally contrary to the nature of reality. Reality is non-dual. If it's non-dual, fear is not appropriate. Fear only occurs in duality, where there's two things, and something is not known. Then fear arises. Fear is just not knowing something. But when you understand the nature of reality, you know there's only one thing here. So thinking that there's two things here is going to produce fear and put you in conflict with what? Reality itself. We call that God, with Ishvara, or, the word God is okay, with the truth or the self. The truth is that what? This is a benevolent universe. This is a good universe. Everything here is looking after everything else. The tree is taking what? Our carbon dioxide and giving us oxygen. And we're giving it carbon dioxide, and taking its oxygen. There's a cycle, a natural cycle. Everything here is looking after everything else, right? Everything else is feeding everything else, right? That's how it works. Everything else is sacrificing for everything else.
Mm.
So, and why is that? Because nature understands that what? That it needs to it needs to take care of itself. Right? And fear is what? I'm not going to take, I don't trust nature. I don't trust God. I don't trust the truth. I'm going to take charge of my own self and take, matters into my own hands. And so when you have that attitude, you're going to feel guilty.
Mm.
And fear is not a comfortable thought. It's just not a happy thought. Why would you think it?
Mm.
What is the emotional component of the fear thought? It's what? It's anxiety.
Mm.
Karma yoga is an attempt to what? To counteract that anxiety, to take care of that anxiety by what? Offering the anxiety to Ishvara, right? Before you act, and what? So that you can act appropriately and in a timely fashion. In other words, so you can make a contribution without anxiety.
Mm.
It's a good question.
So what happens if the fear thought arises? I'm afraid of X, Y, Z. What do you do if that happens to you?
You offer that to Ishvara.
And how do you do it?
Well, you offer it to Ishvara because you know that Ishvara is the one that is going to what? Produce the results.
Mm.
Right? If you have control, then the fear is all right. But you don't have any control over the results. The reason you have fear is because you want to control the result.
Mm.
But you don't have control over the results. Everybody knows this, but what? But they go against that basic fundamental knowledge by entertaining these fears, this anxiety.
Mm.
And it's stupid. It's just stupid. It is not smart. And these people think, oh, yeah, I'm protecting myself. No, you're not. Because Ishwar is going to give you what you need, not what you want.
Mm.
And if your fear is not appropriate, there are appropriate kinds of fear. If your fear is not appropriate, then what? Then you're going to get what you don't want. And that will be the result of what? Of identifying with your fears. So fear is going to produce just as much unwanted karma as what? As no fear at all. If you don't have any fear, and if you see that everything's benign, then what? Then you're good, because Ishvara, that is the protection that Ishvara gives you. Understand? So these people, you know, I know in the spiritual world, people really, there's a group of people, they like me on one level, but they just do not like me on another level, because this is a pet thing that people have. You know, when I had a small ashram in California back in the gay Mecca, we had a lot of gays coming to the teaching, and when I would have a discussion with them and pointed out that gay is a limited identity related to your body and your mind, and that your primary identity was consciousness, and that you can't have two identities at the same time because there's only one of you, right? Then most of those people would leave, because they had built a wall like this wall here. They'd built a big wall around their identity as gay or transgender, or now it wasn't transgender then. In those days, that transgender wasn't a big issue. Now transgender is a big issue. So now they build a whole identity. I'm transgender, or I'm whatever it is. But the reality is, those are purely conceptual identities. They're purely mental identities. They don't talk about the real you, because the real you is free of what? Free of the body, free of the mind. It's identity free. It doesn't need an identity to make itself whole, to make itself complete, to make itself feel good. So, you know, and there's no point in arguing with these people at all. I just don't argue with them because you know, they just say, well, you're wrong, and they just take it as my personal opinion. I'm offering scriptural basis for this, and you know, but they don't want to hear that. They just say, well, that's James's. He's a bigot. He's a homophobe. He's a misogynist. He's a this. He's a that. So they stick me in a box that justifies their point of view, right? And that's the absolute wrong thing to do. The best thing to do is just to listen and think about it and look at the scripture. What does the scripture say?
So, and what happens to me when a fear thought arises is I'm very strict, and I say no to it. I say, what do I say? I say, stop whining. Stop it.
Yeah, this whole thing about identity is a big whine. And they think they're gaining the moral high ground by presenting themselves as a victim and whining, oh, I'm victimized by society. Oh, you know.
And the fear thought is also an identity, isn't it?
It is.
It's an identity.
I'm smart because I'm fearful. I have my butt covered. Nobody can sneak up behind me, and you know.
Yeah, and you should cover too.
And you should cover your butt too, because it might be, it's dangerous out there. Oh, the world is very dangerous. The world is not a danger. The danger is a thought in your mind. As soon as you get rid of that thought that it's dangerous, you see how everything is like loving everything else. Everything's taking care of everything else. You'll see it, but these people won't see it. They're invested in what? In fear. They're invested in this limited identity. You know, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. If that's what they want to do, well, then they're free to do that. But we won't argue with them. It's just a point. People, they come and they want.
Well, you like to ask provocative questions, don't you?
Well, yeah, Vedanta is a provocative. The whole teaching is provocative, because it goes against what everybody thinks is reality.
Mm.
Everybody thinks duality is a reality. And our view is duality is not a reality. Duality is ignorance. So when we present that view, of course it's provocative. Of course people get their back up and they say, oh, that's not so. I experience duality. Well, okay, you experience duality. How does that work for you?
Mm.
Well, it just creates all this anxiety and all these problems for you. You know, and sometimes people realize, well, you know, duality is a problem. Conflict is a problem. That I'm always on edge. I'm always anxious and nervous. Why? You know, because I'm transacting with a world that you know seems to be hostile. But our view, the world is not hostile to us. The world is benign. It's taking care of us.
Mm.
And when we need a whack, the world will give us a whack, and we should be grateful for that. See, there's a bunch of spiritual poets and enlightened people over the ages who like encourage punishment. In other words, they're saying, "Oh God, please punish me. Please teach me. I know I'm thinking wrong here. Help me. Hit me hard. Wake me up."
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And like Rumi and these guys, the balls of Bengal, these kind of people.
Mm.
It's you know. But if you're a fearful, timid little person, you know, and you feel like a victim, and you're all hidden around, and you're always looking over the back and wringing your hands, oh my God, you know, what's happening, and you're just nervous all the time, huh? What kind of a life is that?
Mm.
Kind of a life. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's not that I want to provoke people. The teaching's provocative. I'm basically a big pussycat. I just like to sit in the sun on my deck and you know enjoy the company of my friends and so forth and so on. But as a teacher of Vedanta, you can't teach Vedanta if you care what people think.
Mm.
You can't teach it if you want people to like you, and you can't teach it if you are worried that people don't like you. In other words, if it doesn't work, because people have their own opinions and they're going to project it on you. And I know the difference between myself and other people and their opinions. I see the similarity, I see the point at which we're identified, but I also understand what the difference is. So if you see differences, well, you can see differences. There's no law against it. But I say it's stupid. It's not smart to see differences, to indulge your fears. That's my view.
Mm.
And I know that from my own experience.
And your own guru, maybe, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, my guru. Nowadays, people they couldn't spend 5 minutes in the presence of my guru. He was just totally uncompromising about it, and he was aggressive about it, and nobody likes that, you know. So they'd run off.
So he would tell people to stop whining.
Yeah, you just couldn't whine.
Mm.
It just wasn't acceptable. It's not appropriate in Vedanta. And I got people who want to argue with me. They're whining, saying, well, you know, the Russians are victims of the Ukrainians. They're like talking like that. Excuse me? Right? Well, what can you do with a person that thinks like that? No, the Ukrainians are victims of the Russians. Everybody's a victim here if they're in duality. But nobody's actually victimizing anybody. You're victimizing your own mind when you think like this.
Mm.
You're making yourself a victim.
Yeah, that might be a good title for the video. Stop whining.
Stop whining, yeah. Stop whining.
Mm.
Absolutely. I'm whining now. I'm whining that people are whining.
Oh, yeah. Stop whining, James.
Stop whining. Stop whining. You're whining that people are whining. No, but nobody likes a whiner, do they?
No, not for long.
But not for long. You know, you feel sorry for them for a minute.
You can whine a little bit here and there.
Yeah. A couple minutes, you can hear somebody whining, and then you get sick and tired of it. Jesus Christ, man! You think a better thought. There's other thoughts that are uplifting thoughts, that are inspiring thoughts. Let's think thoughts that are beautiful thoughts.
Gratitude.
Huh?
Today is Thanksgiving. Gratitude.
Oh yeah, Thanksgiving. Yeah, today's Thanksgiving. That's right. You wouldn't know it from being out here in the sun. Most people are giving thanks are in the northern hemispheres, and it's often cold and cloudy and miserable up there. But I give a lot of thanks that I can sit in the sun and talk with you, and about these issues that are important to me and I think to the world. So, yeah, stop whining.
So do have people in the north have more issues with gratitude because it's miserable outside?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I think everybody has an inner whiner, an inner complainer, wherever you are. People where it's too cold say they'd like the warm, and the people where it's warm say it's too hot, and they'd like to get some cool air or whatever it is. It's universal, because it's based upon this idea that you don't understand that reality's good, and there's no other option. In Maya, in the duality, every possibility is contained. The very worst and ugliest thing is always balanced by the most beautiful and uplifting thing. That's the way it is. And so you're going to have these opposites all the time. The question is, who am I? Am I beyond those opposites, or what? Or am I identified with one of these things or another? When I identify with one thing, I make something else an enemy. When you identify as everything that is, as awareness, as existence, then what? There's no enemies. And there's no whine. There's no anxiety, there's no complaint. Everything's good.
All right.
Okay.
I think that's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.